Buddy, welcome. It is Friday, the 23rd, 12 o'clock. Time for our weekly legislative webinar. I'm Kevin Toon, Communications Director for the LLC, filling in for Patty Mulvihill, who's on vacation. Want to welcome everyone to our legislative webinar, and we now have, in case you didn't know, less than 40 days remaining in the 2025 legislative session. Before we start, some quick housekeeping issues. If you have not yet done so, please make sure your microphone is muted. Also, we will end this webinar promptly at 1 o'clock. If you could also do this, please update your screen name to include the city that you represent. I will put some instructions in the chat on how to do that. Lots of new information this week, several bills to cover. We'll do our best to move through it quickly to make sure we can take questions at the end after we hear from our lobbyists. Here's a quick overview of the legislation issues and topics we're going to cover in our top legislative bills of the week section. We're going to revisit Senate Bill 916 on unemployment benefits for striking workers. And we'll also hear about a bill we have not covered previously, House Bill 3883, which is related to public comment at meetings and open meeting fixes. And then we'll have updates on the following: the transportation package, TRIP 2025, a tax compliance measure, recreational immunity, an LLC priority, LLC transient lodging tax flexibility, easy for me to say, another LLC priority for this session. We'll hear about measures 5 and 50. And then two more bills in the water and infrastructure portfolio, one on water rights transfers and the other an LLC priority on the operator and training legislation. Because of the volume of information that we need to present, we'll hold all questions until the end of the presentations. If you have a question, please raise your Zoom hand or type your question in the chat feature. I and others from the LLC on this call will do our best to make sure we note who raised their hands or posed their question in chat first. And when we get to Q&A, we'll go in that order. So let's begin, and I'll bring in our legislative director, Jim McCauley, and his team. Jim.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome again to our legislative updates. So a couple of things I wanted to try to cover on the front end here. As I've done in the past, this always kind of gives us a chance to talk about the importance of your outreach and how much we appreciate that, throughout the process. I mean, it's incredibly helpful for us to continue to see your involvement, and we certainly appreciate it because, again, it's pretty noticeable. As Kevin mentioned, the front end of this, we've got a bunch of things going on here. And we've got a little bit of federal things that are taking place too. As you know, the House passed a budget here a few days or day and a half or so ago, adding $26 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years. Within that budget, any number of different sweeps, cuts have been taking place. They're going to have some potentially dramatic impacts on communities, especially rural communities, when you look at some of the reductions in Medicaid that are out there and the importance of those payments to rural hospitals and medical programs. There's another one in there that's really important related to CDBG and Project Home programs that historically have been incredibly important, again, to communities, both those who are in entitlement communities and have a direct funding mechanism within the CDBG program, but also others, because that money actually makes its way through other state programs and has historically been in the helping fund water projects and things of that nature. So I'm going to drop a information here into the chat for you to be able to respond directly to some key congressional members. There's also going to be some communication going out through the mayor listserv that we have right now that actually has a letter and a template, and I definitely encourage everybody to take advantage of that. NLC and their federal partners are doing everything possible to, move through the process and trying to advocate on behalf of cities. So certainly we've got a lot of work going on here over the next 38, 39 days for our own session, but there's a lot of work going on at the federal level that's going to potentially have an impact on that. The budgeting process itself at our state level is kind of a little bit of a Ouija board in terms of the overall impacts that we're going to have and going to see from the feds on this. And it's going to be important, again, that you also take the time to chime in or continue to chime in to what's going on at the federal level because of its impact here in the state. So with that, we're going to start out with Scott Winkles, who's our lead on general government and has got a couple of bills to update folks on and get some input. So Scott, you're up.
Good afternoon, everyone. I know we've talked about this bill quite a bit. It's Senate Bill 916. This is the bill that would allow striking workers to collect unemployment insurance while they are out on strike. The bill did get amended in the House Labor and Workplace Standards Committee. The amendment does not address our concerns. The amendment does limit the length benefits could be collected to 8 weeks in the event the unemployment insurance fund. The tax rate is at level 5, which is the highest, I believe, the highest rate. That typically only happens when there's a recession or we're coming out of a recession, and which is not a time in which people would actually typically go out on strike, and besides which public employers are reimbursing employers, so the tax rate isn't that's not particularly helpful to us. We did convey to the committee or to legislators and our supporters that does not address our concerns. We remain in active opposition. We expect that the soonest the bill could be up on the floor is Thursday of this week. Procedurally, we checked with the House Clerk's office, and that is that's kind of when we think this bill is going to come up. There are a couple of other things that aren't we're not engaged with, that don't impact cities, but are also controversial with other groups would be up that day. So we think they might spread it out. But right now, the big thing is that this bill will has the potential to disrupt the delivery of services to the public by requiring the taxpayer in the city to subsidize a strike. So we remain in active opposition. We've set out alerts on this before. If you have not talked to your House member about this yet, please do so. Very important bill. We don't think they have the votes to pass it on the floor right now. But that will only be true if all the member organizations in the coalition opposing this bill stay actively engaged, and city leaders, along with their private sector business partners, are asking House members to vote no. This one could come down to the wire. So very concerning, very concerned about this bill moving forward and what it would do to the ability of cities to meet the needs of the public in some critical areas. So that's where we are. You can expect some emails from me later today.
Right. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Yeah, we've been working on certainly the unemployment benefit bill here for weeks. It's a pretty broad coalition.
Yeah.
So we still may have a shot at hitting this thing and dropping it for the session, but that's going to be largely dependent on a lot of that grassroots advocacy that comes in and pressuring your legislators. So again, keep up the good work on that.
Thank you.
And
then
go ahead. Yeah.
So House Bill 3883, this bill, it is a long shot at this point. I will be very candid about that, but it is one avenue in our efforts to alleviate the burden that our members are feeling from the open meetings legislation that was passed last session. And so we are working with the sponsor of that bill, Kim Wallen, to mitigate the public comment sections of the bill that would generally reflect what's the current practice cities are engaged in, so that public comment would only be required at a meeting where a substantive decision is made, that we exempt our youth councils, that we exempt instances where the only reason the meeting is being held is to take a personnel action, and then confine it to and then make sure that public comment could be confined to the purpose of a public body. So the Planning Commission is only going to take Planning Commission, although that their testimony is carved out in statute. The Budget Committee would only take Budget Committee sorts of things. The Parks Board would only take Parks Committee. So if somebody wanted to make some general off-topic comment, that would be reserved for an open comment period at a city council. That's generally reflective of city practice. The exchange, the other part of the bill would be to alleviate the burdens, the 2805 burdens that were placed on cities during the last session. We are still hopeful that we can get something out this session. We are also working on getting a city municipal attorneys appointed to the OGEC in order to get a more reasonable definition, interpretation of these statutes for our members. But that's where we're at now. I know this has been a big issue. It's been a very complicated conversation with the OGEC and with members so far, but we are still working and attempting to get some fixes this session. And that bill is in House rule, so it's not subject to the deadlines, but and it's already received a hearing, so we would need probably one hearing, additional hearing, and then a work session.
Okay. Thanks very much for that, Scott. So let's shift a little bit for really more of some legislative updates, still really important for us. You kind of got the action items up above. So I'll start this out with really transportation package. I think this has been kind of like a Groundhog Week. Still no language, still no real details on what will change from the original TRIP 2025 framework and stuff that they pushed out here about 3 weeks or so ago. What has changed, at least for some updates, is there is now a new transportation committee. It's called the Joint Committee on Transportation Reinvestment. This will effectively be the committee going forward to debate the scale of what this transportation package will look like. They start their first meeting schedule next week on the 27th. And it's going to be a 1 o'clock meeting, so it's not going to be in the evenings, and that's a good thing. I think what's important for a lot of folks to understand, and there's been an awful lot of communication internally with those committee members. They are actively trying to count votes, and they are actively trying to build this final framework to reflect a 3/5 vote, which is what they're going to need, because it's going to be a revenue generating package, essentially taxes and fee structures. So that's going to be important as they go forward, because there's no point in bringing forward a package unless they've got the votes. And there still is a pathway for that. Number of different things that have been added to some of that mix to try to capture some Republican votes is DEQ has stepped away from their timeline on the clean trucks rule and is going to be pushing that out for a longer time frame. That is important to a number of different Republicans who are concerned about its impacts. I think it's still fair to say that there are some standing pieces of legislation that are currently active in the legislature that are unrelated to transportation that may well be part of this overall mix going forward too. So we'll see, excuse me, how that shapes out. The other thing that's emerged is, I'll just say, kind of scrambling and looking at different ways to fund transportation. And OPB actually has a pretty solid article on this that I will drop into the chat as well, and you can take a look at it. It'll help kind of lay out. It'll take me a moment here, but I'll get it in there for you. But it talks about some of the existing or some additional funding mechanisms that they've been talking about, I think largely internally, although it came out publicly this week, and that essentially is cap and trade, to potentially use a cap and trade system to help fund transportation investments over time. Now, we don't currently have one. We have something similar called a climate protection program that's been in place for a number of years. That's been generating all sorts of revenue to reduce greenhouse gases. that revenue has also been discussed about coming up with a gap funding for wildfire and resilience investments and things across the state. Probably has a closer nexus to that than it does on the transportation side, but nevertheless, I think you've got the legislature and in particular leadership and these joint committee chairs looking for a number of different options and stuff to fund transportation down the road. So right now, I expect to see some level of language next week emerge because they're looking at the first week of June of having their first set of hearings on this transportation package. So there's time, it's getting shorter, but also keep in mind that the transportation package back in 2017 did not hit the floor for a vote until the final week of session. So right now, sine die officially is the 30th, or excuse me, the 27th of June. The targeted sine die is the 18th. Probably not going to hit the 18th, but they'll definitely be out of there before the 4th of July for sure. So with that, I'll finish up on mine and turn this over to Nolan Plesha and let him talk about House Bill 2084. And if I'm not mistaken, Nolan, this is a good news. See if we can get him on. Nolan, you're up. Okay, we'll come back to Nolan. Scott, if you're available, let's hit on Senate Bill 179. This is a good news item for us.
Jim, I am here if
Oh,
sorry.
yeah, no worries. Go ahead.
My apologies. My daughter doesn't have school today, so I was grabbing her something. So I just wanted to provide some good news. We I think only talked about House Bill 2084 early this session. But it reared its ugly head about a month ago. This is a tax compliance bill that originally was not very great for cities. We were able to negotiate this down to just focus on what's called a certificate of compliance for folks that are working with public improvement projects within agencies. That includes at the state level and local level. It would just be a form that entities have to fill out. The Department of Revenue would then certify those forms that they are within tax compliance and then provide a certificate to those entities. The most important thing for folks here is that we were successful in negotiating this to only impact state agencies. So local governments are exempt. The chair of the committee did want to make this a local option and so has decided to create an opt-in option based on our feedback. We did not want it to be an opt-out situation. So if local governments want to use this program with the Department of Revenue to certify tax compliance for projects, they will have that option, but you are not obligated to do so. So right now the bill is just its base bill. So I'll put the link in here shortly, but the base bill is not moving forward. There will be amendment that is forthcoming based on the negotiations. But for those that were following it, just know that this will really just focus on state agencies and it will be an opt-in option for local governments.
Okay, super. Definitely like to hear good news. It's been a pretty tough session, so we'll take the good news where we get it. Thanks very much for that one. Scott, you are next up. Senate Bill 179, Rec Immunity and its journey.
It is coming in for a landing on the governor's desk. So made it out of committee unanimously. Believe it was unanimous on the floor, and it's been signed by both presiding officers, and it is currently at DOJ for review, and we expect it to be signed. So that will make permanent the additions of running, walking, and cycling to this named activities in the recreational immunity statute. I think there may be some more things that we need to do in this area in subsequent sessions, but we feel protected now, and with the jury returning a verdict in favor of Newport, in the Fields case, that we're in pretty good shape. So yeah, so good news. That one I think is put to bed.
Yeah, no, that's it's great. Hopefully this fix will last maybe more than a few years.
Well, I think there is some, I mean, going forward, I think we will have some continued conversations about uh, uh, addressing the subjectivity, whether the injured party was subjectively exercise or recreating or not. But I think we're protected now. No danger of any advice from your insurance carriers to close facilities, and you know, so I think we're in good shape.
That's good. Good to know. Let me bring in Jenna Jones, our tax, finance, and um, everything all the time, transient lodging tax. So House Bill 3962. We're in a place we haven't been before.
Yeah, so I'll just continue on with the good news. And first say thank you for everyone who's continued to talk to their legislators in support of this bill. We're making momentum. This week we finally had our negotiation with the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association and other destination management organizations. I want to give a special thank you to the cities of Lincoln City, Bend, Sutherland, and Albany for attending those negotiations with me. And then we had a friend from Clatsop County as well. We went to the negotiation. Orla did show up, which was a good first step. We kind of aired all of the reasons why we need more flexibility across the state. We had, if I can count right, 5 legislators in the room. So 3 from the House Revenue Committee. So Chair Nathanson, both vice chairs, Walters and Reschke. Rep. Walters is one of our chief sponsors. And then we had our 2 other chief sponsors, Rep. Javity and Senator Weber there. We didn't get any workable amendments back from the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association folks, but I will say that my read on the conversation and negotiation was it went well in city's favor. We're going to come back to the negotiating table next Wednesday, and hopefully there will be something that Orla can counteroffer our -2 amendment. I think if it continues where we don't get something that could work for them, or that they're willing to talk about different things, we will just kind of move on with the bill as is. A couple of things that I would say were like might come up are limiting the definition from public safety and community infrastructure to public safety and critical infrastructure, which is water, wastewater, and transportation. Right now, the community infrastructure includes parks, trails, and public amenities, so your public restrooms, your public parking. So we'll see. But right now, they would like us to continue asking permission for them to not sue us to do stuff that's new and unique across the state. Representative Nathanson did make it very clear that she's not interested in this mother may I scenario anymore for local governments with their destination management organizations. So we're moving along. We're in uncharted territory. But we seem to have a lot of buy-in from the legislature.
Yeah, that's it's great news. And again, that's I think if there's one thing we often emphasize, it's that grassroots work. The reason why we're in the position we're in is because of your outreach. And I think in order to get what we want to achieve at the end of the table, that's going to have to continue here for the next 38 days. This is going to be a hard bill to move once we get it into that position. And it's going to take everything from you continuing on with your outreach. So certainly appreciate it. And thanks for that update. Michael Martin, water. Give us an update here. We've got at least some positive news on that end as well.
Yeah, I got some. It's a mixed bag, but just want to emphasize the water right transfer bill 1153. So just a recap summary of this, Senate Bill 1153 would have effectively created new standards on water right transfers, which we believe would have led to more litigation and cost to our cities, and utilizing that process. And part of the reason that that process is more important now than ever is the recent groundwater rules that have really curtailed how many ground water permits are going out, and just the limited availability of surface water rights as well. So we had a table, we had representatives at a table negotiating with the governor's office and key water users and environmental groups. And we finally got to, after many weeks and coordinated outreach to members in the legislature, that we finally got to a place where we can get a municipal exemption. So that language is currently being drafted. We're cautiously optimistic that it will remain in there. And of course, we'll be doing due diligence to make sure it remains. But huge news. I just want to thank every one of our members who did outreach. Like Jim said at the top, it's goes a long way when you all reach out to your members, your legislators in doing this, and to thank all the members in city lobby who really helped, push and make sure we get this in. So we're likely to get a municipal carve out on 1153. So, and excuse me. The second bill that I wanted to update you all, and this is like many things kind of stuck in the Ways and Means process. This is our operator in training, one of our top 9 priorities. There is a bulletin that went out just after 11 this morning. Kind of summarizes that and also has some language for you to do outreach directly to your legislators. So the request here is please push, tell folks why you need water and wastewater operators and why we should continue to address that. It's really important on an advocacy level to ensure that gets in the final budget. So that's the top line.
Great. Thanks very much, Michael. I'll have to say, for the operator in training, the key piece here is we need legislators. We need a legislator to go in there and advocate for that $3.5 million. And, we've had many different touch points, or Michael has, and the partners around the table, but this is ultimately going to take pushing your legislators, convincing them that this is important for you. It has a global impact on municipal operators across the entire state. And if we can get 1 or 2 legislators to make this a priority budget item, we've got a decent shot at being able to capture the funding on this program going forward. So thank you for that. So we're at a point of Q&A. Like in years, or like we've had for the entire season of these legislative updates, we'll take those questions with a hand raised or drop it into chat.
So we'll monitor chat, folks, for the next few minutes. It occurs to me that it is a holiday weekend, so there could be a bit of reluctance to extend this webinar beyond 30 minutes. We shall see. While we're waiting, if you didn't see it already, there is a link in the chat to today's edition of the bulletin, and the lead story is Michael's article about the operator and training bill. So please check that out when you have a second. And Jim, we do see now a question in the chat from Happy Valley. Thoughts on next steps regarding the recent OGEC rulings on food and beverages? And yes, Ben, you're right. This is right up Scott Winkle's alley. So Scott has appeared on screen and he's ready to respond.
Oh, yes, I am. So the advice isn't entirely new. What happened, and this was 2 weeks ago Friday. Well, it actually goes back to over the summer. City of Beaverton had asked the OGC for staff advice. It was it appeared to me to be a pro forma a request for advice that many public officials make prior to doing something. And I believe the perception is that the OGC would approve that the food provided to public officials by their agency for a meeting. It was a team building event, I recall. The staff advice came back in a way that was problematic. They had said that no, it actually needs to be part of your official compensation package, which had not been anybody's understanding of that statute for a number of years. Or at least as long as I've been working on ethics issues, which goes back to the '07 session. We asked the commission to override that staff advice, or subsequent to that staff advice coming out, the league issued some advice to the city or the attorneys that they needed to adopt model policies related to ensuring that Costco hot dogs, food provided to the public officials, was part of their official compensation package. We had asked the commission to override that staff advice. It took them quite a while to get that on the agenda, and we argued for it, and then we lost at the commission level. And so it's not so much new as it is a codification of existing staff advice that we've already issued counsel to our members on. So it's really too late in session to address this now. I think we are working with our local government partners, OSBA, the Special Districts Association, and the counties on an ethics bill coming into February where we can address that. I've had a couple of questions this morning because the OGC is also, and I'm trying to explain this as best I can, that public city councils, that it's potentially problematic for city councils to vote on their own official compensation packages because of the conflict of interest, benefit of office statutes. We've pointed out to them that those votes are actually required by law. So other laws, we do have a bill coming out of this session that will resolve this interesting conundrum that the OGC came up with, but you may rest assured that the OGC is preventing the corrupting influence of a Costco hot dog from influencing our public policy. And maybe I'll just stop right there.
Well, Ben in Happy Valley certainly knew the right button to push with you, Scott. So we'll use that as a launching pad into our holiday weekend. And and clearly from his comment in the chat, he appreciates your soliloquy. Question from the city of Glendale. Question about House Bill. The chat is moving. It looked like it said 5531, and we were texting offline. I think Jenna is going to talk about that.
Yeah, so Senate Bill 5531 is the lottery bond bill. So it's had a public hearing and an informational hearing. I will say this will be one of the last bills to pass during the session. This, along with the Christmas tree bill, which is kind of all of the general fund allocations that aren't in an individual budget. So all of the little ornaments that people want to take home to their districts will come out towards the end of the session. So right now, that bill has been heard by the Capital Construction Subcommittee of Joint Ways and Means, the main budgeting committee of the legislature. And now it kind of sits and waits based on bonding resources and legislative priorities. We probably won't see anything new or any type of amendment to that bill until a few days before session ends. So I know from the LOC perspective, we asked for things around like Special Public Works Fund, some housing dollars as well there, and housing infrastructure dollars, and economic development funding, which typically comes out of lottery bonds. So stay tuned.
Jenna, thanks. There was a note in our published agenda this morning that you were also going to have some information related to measures 5 and 50. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think it may have gotten dropped off, but I have more good news. This week, I'm just full of good news. Representative Nathanson has been hearing a bunch of things around Measure 550 and just property tax reform as the chair of the Revenue Committee. And this week we had an informational hearing before the committee where LOC, AOC, and the Legislative Revenue Office gave kind of presentations with, the failures of Measure 5 and 50. Since that public or that informational hearing, Representative Nathanson has indicated to me that she's going to go forward with some sort of interim work group with some flexible goals about reviewing the property tax system and potentially modernizing it. We're hoping that she will formally put it in a bill just to show a sign of good faith, but with or without a bill, she will be convening stakeholders and legislators to continue the conversation and likely want to do some road shows across the state to hear from our local government folks, but also from the public. So that will be done in coordination with LOC's broader revenue reform project, and I think they will pair really nicely. So the legislature is also taking property tax reform pretty seriously.
That's not something we've heard in a while, so that's encouraging.
Yes, yes, it is.
And by a while, I mean maybe decades. So, Scott, I want to bring you back real quick. Missed a follow-up question from City of Harrisburg related to the OGEC discussion. Can you address that, please?
Yeah, so as I interpret it, so a volunteer who does not have a compensation, who doesn't have any compensation with the city, yeah, I think you would have to adopt a policy. I believe the model policy that the league sent out does encompass all volunteers as well. So I will talk to our Jamie and Robin in our legal shop about reissuing that advice this week in light of the OGC ruling.
Sounds good. Thank you, Scott. I've got about 37 past the hour, so we've still got time, obviously. We will end promptly at 1. If there are any... Looks like there's another one there for you, Scott. I'm not sure if that's a question or a comment, but that looks like it's related to OGC as well from Seaside.
Yeah, I think you would have to have some official act from a council to allow those volunteers to accept food provided by the city they serve, whether it's a city council, whether it's a volunteer on a commission, or your CERT volunteers, or anybody in that area. It was an odd ruling. We argued against it. We're working on fixes for February and to make some adjustments at the commission.
Sounds good. Thank you for addressing that. And we'll continue on looking for questions. Again, raise your hand, your chat, your Zoom hand, or just type something in the chat if you have more questions. We'll give this a couple of more minutes. As I mentioned before, take a look at this week's bulletin. It's in your inbox as of 11 o'clock this morning. And I'll give you one last reminder as we're watching for any more questions. We will be here every Friday until the end of the session, 12 o'clock, to provide these updates. Jim, I'm thinking we're going to call it.
Yeah, no, I'm good. Again, final thoughts, keep the advocacy up. Please do respond to all the bulletin and messages that we get going. The next 3.5, 4 weeks here is going to be coming fast and furious. They're going to be going to 1-hour notifications on hearings. We're not going to have time to be able to push out changes and amendments. So stay on top of the messaging that you get from us. Everything is really, truly appreciated. It's put us in a much better position to have your advocacy out there. And we're going to need it here for the next month.
All right, Jim, thank you for that. And by my count, thank you to the 50+ cities who are on this call today. Almost half of you are small cities, which is populations of 7,500 or less. So we truly appreciate that. And we appreciate more broadly everything you do for your communities and your constituents. So with that, we'll call it a day and a holiday weekend. Have a safe and happy Memorial Weekend, everybody. We'll see you next Friday at 12 o'clock.